Hi everyone, it's Suzanne Culberg, and today I'm super excited to be joined by Kathy Whittam.
Me too.
Kathy is an RN, a parenting coach, a mum, a Grammy, I love that, and a poet. So welcome, Kathy, and so excited to have you join us today.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. I've really been looking forward to this very much. So let me tell you a little bit about myself.
Yes, please.
You know how a parent or caregiver can end up at their wit's end when their child, no matter what age, won't listen? Every day can be consumed with power struggles over bedtime, schoolwork, screen time, or chores. And it can seem no matter how hard they work at being good parents, they still feel like they're failing. The chaos continues, and the distance between them and their child keeps growing. I know this firsthand. I was that parent. And now, what I do with that experience is pay it forward. I empower parents and caregivers with tools and strategies that restore peace and communication, and work to repair the relationship by learning to respond to what their child needs rather than react to their child's behavior. My parent-centric approach is based on the understanding that behavior is communication. So that's a bit about me, and I'd love to hear what you think people would want to hear today, Suzanne. It's so timely with
Thank you, Kathy. Two things stood out from me when you went through that bio. We're recording this at the time of, a pandemic. So you were saying about distance, like as in something about distancing ourselves from our child. And at the moment, we don't have the physical distance because a lot of the countries are in lockdown or encouraged to stay at home. So physically, we're in the same space of our child 24/7. But I imagine, I know for me, like emotionally, and this is what I was talking to you before we hit record about presence, as in they're in my presence, but I don't often feel fully present with them. And when I get distracted, or I tend to be a little bit snappy. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that.
Well, yes, the emotional distance and what's going on these days is an unprecedented situation for families all around the world. I'm in Boston, you're in Australia, it's the same. The distance that happens is this lack of connection that is driven by the amount of stress that's going on at home for everyone. Who wouldn't get snappy at this time? Many parents are trying to do what you said to me. I try to be 100% present to work and 100% present to my kids. And now parents are trying to be 100% present to being teachers at home, doing work, schoolwork at home, and also parenting. And bottom line is, I don't believe this is possible for any human being.
That's reassuring.
We were never meant, parenting alone was never meant to be so isolated. But in this situation, to expect something that is superhuman only adds stress.
That's very reassuring.
Yes, and we're conditioned to really put a lot of pressure on ourselves, even before this, to over function, really, to try to do it all and do it all well and perfectly. And one of my main principles is that connection matters more than perfection.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So what happens when I say that to you? What comes to mind first off?
It's well, the first thing that came to mind is I was having a discussion with my daughter yesterday. She's 6, and she was asking me about how I went in a pandemic when I was a kid. And I had to say to her, there hasn't been a global pandemic, I believe, since Spanish flu or something. It's like 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. So not only is there the uncertainty in the climate that there is, it's like we are parenting something that this generation or the people before us have not done. So it's totally so then we were having a discussion because she's got this obsession with that TikTok. I don't let her have her own channel, but she can watch some of the others when I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, if this had happened when I was a child, we had like 3 stations of television, no YouTube, no TikTok, no email, like not, you know, not, I laughed to myself when I finished the conversation because I was like, this is like my grandparents saying to me when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I had to walk 6 kilometers to school with no shoes through the snow, you know, and I was like, this is like the modern version of this.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like that connection about let's have an honest conversation rather than me trying to pretend that I knew stuff about this that I just don't. So it's like, honey, I'm winging this as much as you, you know?
I love that. I love the honesty and the being real with our kids. They need us to be honest with them in the sense of this. This is a thought I had before the call, which can I share?
Yes, please.
So I believe validation's always really important emotionally, but how I would specifically look at it right now with what's going on is what I would suspect I would have done is try to normalize what's happening, like do my best to be functioning at the same level, to make it okay for the kids and try to do it all in a way that makes it seem like okay. And I think that impulse is, of course, very normal for a parent. Like, we want to help our kids be okay. The problem is that there is a disconnect between that and reality right now. And so I happened to read this this article about happened to be a mom writing the article, and she was saying how her young son was practically living in a pillow fort right now, and staring at his iPad. And then she said something even more heartbreaking, which is like, or just sitting there and not even looking at the iPad.
Oh.
Everybody is stressed out right now and scared. Our kids are scared, I would say, depending on their age and what their level of understanding of what's happening. Our kids are scared because everything's different. Talk about transition and change, the 2 biggest stressors that human beings pretty much experience. Everything is different. And to try to do it the same when everything's different is incongruous. So I got this idea when I read that article and was tossing this around before the call with my boyfriend, actually, that our kids need us to all get in the pillow fort together. Like,
oh, I like that.
Have we hunkered down and taken a break, which might not have happened yet, because the first couple weeks is just like trying and scrambling and, okay, we're gonna do this, I can do this. But we really can't do this, not the same way. So what if the first step is to hunker down together and just admit, none of us is really totally okay right now. I get it. Nothing's normal. Everything's different. The validation of what your kids are feeling, instead of the focus on trying to get them to do the things you think they need to do and get you to do the things that you think you need to do based on what was true at the end of last year.
Yes, and I think that leads into a lot of the things I was thinking about is like with the schoolwork. And I must admit, I was saying to you before the call, I'm not that stressed with the schoolwork because I figure everybody's in the same category, like in the whole world. So, but I do get stressed when I either talk to my parents. If you're watching this, I love you guys, but I know you mean well, but you stress me out when you're asking about, or when I'm scrolling on Facebook and people are putting out these resources with love, and I'm sure they mean well. And I did a post about my daughter. She had the schoolwork. It was funny. I can't remember now. It was something about digraphs and trigraphs. I read it and I'm like, I don't know what that is. Anyway, I said to my husband, hey, do you know what this is? He's like, hmm? And then my daughter, who's 6, is like, a diagraph is, and she explained it. And I was like, who's teaching who here? It was so funny. But a lot of friends commented on that post, and I think they thought I was like, help me, I need rescuing. But I was more like, this is really entertaining. And I got a number of PMs saying, do you want me to be a tutor? Do you want this? And I'm like, oh, like, am I, that's when the doubt crept in. Do you know what I mean? So I think sometimes our meaning of love and our outpouring to connect and help can actually wobble people, or maybe it's just me. You know what I mean?
No, I don't think it's just you. I think things can become overwhelming. And when we as parents add the pressure of thinking we should know how to do it all and do it all perfectly, it becomes like, I don't want to see any of that. You know, it sounds to me, Suzanne, like, I love that you had that moment of humor with your daughter, because that's a moment of connection. And the most important thing we need right now is connection. And the biggest thing in the way of connection is stress.
Yes, yes.
So I just have this imagining of the family hunkering in the fort together, sitting there quietly, you know, feeling that it's different and it's not okay. But this is a thing that the parents have the power to do. They're the ones who need to be able to tell the kids it will be okay.
Yes.
How can you tell them that if you aren't sure? So
yes,
the way I like to say that is, I'll do, can I do it just with you, Suzanne?
Yeah, sure.
Like, if you sort of check in with yourself, how much of you can say truthfully that it's going to be okay? What part of you?
In like a percentage, or?
Yeah, in a percent.
Well, to be truthful, I'd say 80 to 90, because at this time, I understand we're all in the same outer experience, but we're having very different inner experiences. I've had a lot of transition in my life personally. I've moved around a lot. My husband's been made redundant a lot. So this time of not knowing, although, you know, it's the not knowing, that's not unfamiliar to me. So when I'm in my own and listening to myself, I'm like, yeah, we'll get through this. We have every other time. But when I take on the external stuff is when I get the wobbles.
Got it. So you're in a good position if you're hunkered in with your kids to say, we're all either not okay right now, or it's really different. Everything's different, and we're not even sure how to do anything about that right now, what to do, but it's gonna be okay. So to reassure your kid, it's gonna be okay. And what I want to speak to is also the parent that's going to listen to this, that maybe only 10% of them feels like it's going to be okay, or 20% of them, or 50%, not of parents, but of within a parent. How much of you can you find that can say it's going to be okay?
And I think, sorry to interrupt you, but I think that can vary in the moment too. At the moment, I'm 80%, but ask me in the time that I'm feeling stressed, I'll probably say 10%. Do you know what I mean?
And when your parents have talked to you, it's less, right?
Yes, yes.
So I just want to say that it doesn't matter what percent it is. What matters that if you can connect to that percent that can say it's okay, you can say it from there to your kids. They need to hear that honestly, not fake, it's going to be okay. No. But like, okay, a lot of me's not okay, but I want you to know. And then you're like, okay, there is a piece of me that's okay. It is going to be okay. The kids need us to tell them that.
Yes.
And any percent that you can connect to, that you can come from to tell them that, is enough.
Yes. And I've got another question. With the hunkering down, because I really like that, let's all get in the pillow fort together. How much do you think it's like trying to keep the traditions but modify them? Like, I was on Facebook this morning and one of my friends had posted they go camping every Easter, and it's Easter weekend as we're recording this. and they can't physically, so they've set up the tent in the backyard. And I was like, how cool is that? So it's keeping the tradition but modifying it to suit the times.
Yes, I think that's wonderful. I mean, what that speaks to is some kind of predictability. In times of crisis, and let's not kid ourselves, that is where we are. So we have to be crisis responders now. It's different. It isn't what it was at home. And so where we can create consistency or predictability, it brings reassurance. It brings some settling inside and some regulation. So I think that's a fantastic idea, to keep to something predictable that you have in your family tradition. I think that can apply to small things or camping trips, you know?
Yeah, with the camping trips, I think it's good. I think, this is me personally, I loved your insight on it. In terms of things like schoolwork, like when my daughter goes to school, she's there 9 till 3. Do you know what I mean? It's an entire day. Yes, there's lunch and recess and playtime. But at home, we can usually knock off what she's been given at school in half an hour. But I think there's not the distraction of the other kids, or not that other kids are distraction, I don't mean that in a harsh way, but like the sharing and the group time, there's just us, you know? So I think not me, but some other parents I've been talking to feel this like, I should be giving them school all day and then trying to do their work all day. And then, you know, as I think this circles back lovingly to what we talked about at the beginning. It's like, it's trying to keep the some of the semblance of routine, but being open or flexible into the delivery.
Yes, I agree with that. Because the impact of trying to, especially some kids are more stress sensitive than others. There are kids that will there are some kids that will like knock off their work, whatever, without a big hassle. But my heart really goes to the kids that are stress sensitive, where everything really is different. It isn't just routine. So the kids go to school from 9 to 3, but it isn't just a time frame. It involves connection with the teacher, connection with their peers, a lot of different activities, you know, recess, lunch. I wouldn't recommend per se to try to force the same school routine, unless there are some schools that were like on it with organization here. It's very inconsistent. But there are schools that jump right into immediate virtual school, where the teacher is there and they're in school, but they are literally in school virtually.
Wow, I haven't seen that here personally, but then again, my children are quite young, so we're talking the preschool years. High school, I imagine, would be considerably different.
This isn't particularly a high school that I'm talking about, but it is inconsistent preparedness and philosophy. You have that all the way from a mom I know, and it isn't just moms, there's dad. I talk to dads too, but when the things come in my mind, it has to do with whoever that person is, right? So this mom has a young teen who has had a lot of illness over the past school year, and has been in and out of the hospital and challenged with mental illness. And yet what she's receiving from school is mostly just quizzes in math, of which she's missed most of it.
So that must be really confronting and
very stressful. So of course she's going to push back, right? So I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all approach. And I believe totally predictability and structure is good, is necessary. But I think there has to be a little shift in whether in doing it, depend on the kids, but a little more teamwork.
Yes.
So for instance, let's take my tent fort analogy.
I love that. We keep coming back to that, but I really love it.
It's really came intuitively before the call, and I had just read that article and it struck me, because if we don't stop and validate and acknowledge what's happening, it isn't just going to automatically get better and less stressful at home.
Yes.
We have to pause. And that's true in a micro sense, like when here we go again and a power struggle starts, my first thing is pause, stop, drop, and breathe. But this is on a bigger sense. So we have to pause, hunker in unity where there's connection and we're all in this together, and you're validating. Depends on the kid's age, they aren't going to be able to identify why they're in the pillow fort watching their iPad. You have to know that it's a reflection of such extreme stress, really. Behavior is communication. What that behavior is communication is that kid is way over the limit of overwhelm. And so you're in the fort, you're paused, you're in the fort, you're hunkered together, you've validated, you've reassured from an honest place. And then maybe it's like, you know what? We're going to get through this together. And it might start a very different conversation at home where people get to say, well, what's working and what's not working about this? What do you like about being home and not at school? And let me just bring this resource in because I did. One of my colleagues who's an educator and a trauma-informed therapist, she did this kind of debrief with her kids where what is good, what sustains you about being at home, what works.
Yep.
And there were things like, I don't have to deal with annoying kids at school, all the things that are true. And also for you and your husband, is that right?
Yep.
Okay, so you have your things too, and I get to stay up later or whatever they are.
Yeah, I actually made a post on my page, for those following my page recently. I was like, look, when it rains, look for rainbows. So what are all the rainbows in this situation? I was like, my husband's commute for work is walking up the stairs. Do you know what I mean? Whereas before it was 45 minutes. There's lots of things I've wanted to try, though I'm quite shy and introverted, so going out to things is a challenge for me. But with the adaptation to things going online, I've tried heaps of stuff. Do you know what I mean? And I've done it with my kids. Like in the past, I've been trying, and I love this, it comes to your blanket fort analogy, like online yoga, meditation, chanting type things. My son has come and done them with me. He's 4. So now he runs his own, like I don't like, not officially, but for us at home, relaxing classes, he calls them. And I filmed one and put it on my page. It was just so cute.
That sounds adorable.
Experiencing, like making, looking for the rainbows in the rain rather than being like looking for all the things that we're missing. So, and sometimes too, like, yesterday we were at the park and practicing the social distancing, but for the exercise, and there were so many dogs, and he really loves dogs. And normally with permission of the owner, I would allow him to pat them, like obviously, but he doesn't understand why he can't pat the dogs that he normally does. And I'm, explaining to him, and we can still see the dogs and enjoy the dogs, and, so yeah.
I love that. And I love that you're modeling it. Modeling is what our kids learn.
Yes.
Much more than any words we ever say. 80% of behavior, of communication, is nonverbal. So I love what you're saying about that modeling. And so if that hasn't occurred because it's been so stressful, let's have, like, bring it more into the connection to the family. And you can talk about how, if you want to talk it about as the rainbows, or talk about it as the things that feel good by being home, what works, and then do the flip side, what needs to improve.
Yes.
This is a huge opportunity and challenging for us parents to listen to our kids. And some of the things that came out for my friend Stacy's kids were, I think, very revealing for other people who are dealing with schoolwork at home. One of the things is like, well, first of all, one of them was like, I hate online school. I don't feel like I'm learning. I miss my friends. I can't see my teachers. And also, like, we're on the screen more than we've ever been before, and we're supposed to cut down screen time. Like,
that's a very valid point. Yes.
And why not assignments that, and her letter was to educators with respect, but still, why not assignments that take into account where are we at? How about an assignment that is like go out in your yard and find ants, or I don't know.
I must admit, I have been very fortunate. My daughter's school has been very responsive to the situation that we're in. The assignments have been things like go to the cupboard and get 5 cans and weigh them out and measure them from heaviest to lightest, or draw a map of your house. And with Easter coming, where do you think the eggs could be hidden? Or like they have been really good to where we're at, rather than, except for that digraph trigraph thing, everything else has been, using what we have. So I think that's really important. And also too, the not being able to see, what her teacher has done is each day she's made a really short video, like a minute or two, saying welcome and that. And then she's encouraged them to do a selfie or some sort of photo of them working and post in the group so they can see each other. But then they've also made it like, I couldn't work out the system. It's like Microsoft Teams. I'm not the most tech. And I was anxious because I was like, I don't want her to be like missing out or marked down. And they were like, just do what you can do. And slowly I've been figuring it out. So we have been so fortunate, but I know not other parents are. So it's just making the most of what you can, rather than like, because you can get a bit like, oh, well, I wish we were like them. But yeah.
So what's really working about that is that particular teacher is focusing on the relationship. So relationship comes before results.
Yes.
And if that isn't your situation, the focus must be on relationship at home. I mean, that's always true no matter what. But if your school is more challenging, we're going to have to let go of some things to stay or to find a way to focus on relationship. Because your child, if they're feeling super dysregulated, they will get your attention all day long.
Yes.
And it won't be peaceful and it won't feel good. But you're stressed too. So once you move on from now we're in the pillow fort again.
No, it's such a good example though.
You're listening to your kids and they might say something like, they need to know you're not going to respond back, that it's really just listening time. They might say, I hate it that mommy's yelling at me more. Okay, they're going to say some things if they have a space to say them that are going to feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
Or that could feel bad. And that is also like them crying out for help. It's stressful, right? Now that doesn't mean you're a bad parent. As a matter of fact, I think everyone who's ever going to listen to this is a better parent than they probably think they are.
Definitely.
Yeah. But what it does mean is that not only the relationship with your child, but your relationship with yourself has to have attention.
That gives me goosebumps. Yes.
And in my last blog post, actually, I wrote, because that could feel like another thing you have to do, another overwhelming thing.
And when you're already overwhelmed and your emotions are up to here, another thing can just be like done. And then I might stare. You know how we had that stare aimlessly at the iPad thing, the kids? I do that sometimes too, or scroll.
Totally, and you are not alone. But our bandwidth is really tiny too. So I suggested, maybe this will be helpful to your people too, to think of filling your tank. Like I think of it as your tank is empty. You need to fill your tank. Think of taking small sips throughout the day instead of a giant cup, a big gulp at like this of soda or water or a giant drink. That's not sustainable. But a sip could be something like one deep breath. That's a
Mm.
sip. What do you think could be a sip, Suzanne?
No, I'm really liking this because my audience and the people I work with, we tend to be overeaters. So give to everyone else, give to everyone else, give to everyone else, be completely depleted,
Yes.
binge. Do you know what I mean? And
Oh,
when you're
and
saying
I
a
know
sip,
that firsthand too.
yeah, it
I
can
was
be
a
like,
binge eater.
okay, I must admit, I try to be really clear with my kids, and it's off-putting for some people because they're like their kids, and anyway. But I'll be like, Mummy just needs a minute, I'll go and make a cup of tea, and I'll go outside if I can. Like, obviously check that they're safe, but just take a couple of breaths or have a couple of sips of the tea, or just go wash my face or something, so I can just have that few moments of, and then come back.
I love that. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I love adding wash my face because it's like a very, it's refreshing, but very small amount of time. And I think we need to model to our kids self-care. And I think it's helpful to, especially if you need a minute when the kids are agitated, to make sure they know this is not about you. Mommy needs call it something. Mommy
Yeah,
needs
it's
a
called my recharge time. They have a name for
recharge.
it. And sometimes they'll say, Mummy needs her recharge time. And I'll be like, oh, so they'll pick it before I do, which is interesting. You know what I mean?
So mommy or daddy needs it could be a quick recharge. Like sometimes your recharge time probably is like it before you probably had a more set thing, maybe longer than if
Yeah,
they.
or I'd go to the gym or I would go out. So now it is quicker. But
So
also,
let's,
too, I notice when I don't take that, like I will feel guilty for doing that. But if
yep.
I don't, then I end up in the pantry snaffing stuff, like
Yes.
eat. So,
Because you're compelled to try to regulate.
yes.
And that's,
And if you don't do it consciously, I'll do it unconsciously.
yes, because you're trying to feel better.
Mm.
Yep. And there are many ways to try to feel better, and some are more
Healthy and some are unhealthy.
supported,
That
but
thing
they're
can be
all in
online shopping.
yes, they're all an attempt to feel better. So the sips is like mommy needs a quick reboot. I'll be back in a minute. I'll be back in 5 minutes. Like something that they can hold on to that's predictable, that you're not leaving, even though, and then you can help them better. But they don't
Yes.
understand. They will come to understand that. It sounds like your kids have come to understand that.
Yes.
To some extent, but your
To
kids
start with, it was challenging though. They would follow me, or you'd have the fingers under the door, or
yes. And if this is a new practice for you as a mom or dad listening to this, they are not going to support you in this at first, because it will feel a little scary to them that you're leaving them when you're upset or when they're upset. They'll feel the stress and feel a little anxious about you leaving. That's why I would use some verbal reassurance, not verbal explaining, like, but I need time and then I'll be better when I come back. No, they don't understand that. Just say, I need what did you say? Not reboot,
recharge.
I need a quick recharge. I'm going to go wash my face and I'll be back in a minute. Like all predictable stuff that they can be like, okay, they can tolerate a minute, or they can't, and they might follow you, but you're still going to stay on your track and say, I'm just going to go wash my, you're going to have to reinforce.
Yeah, it didn't take as long as I thought, to be honest.
Because you came back calmer.
Yeah, and the other reason that I was more, so up until this last year, I solo parented. My husband worked away. So I had to have all these little things because I didn't have anybody else, and now it's just continuing those patterns and stretching the time out a bit longer because they are that bit older. So I can sometimes have up to 5 minutes. Like Mummy will have her cup of tea and then we can play this. But, the sometimes it's like, we have our moments like everyone does, but mostly it's pretty like this recording now. Mummy's recording something for work. So they're downstairs on the trampoline. You may have heard them a couple of times. My husband's also watching them, so they're not alone. But, as soon as this is finished, we'll go and do something. So it's that, like, I don't think it's a reward. It's like, this is how we go about it. And then the routine. Mummy works, then we spend time together.
It's been reinforced. And
Yeah.
also what is reinforced is that when you come back, you're available emotionally.
Yes. And that's what we were talking about at the very beginning. And I love, because I'm looking at the time and we have to wrap this up shortly, but it's that presence. So when I'm fully present in this interview talking to you now, and I'm fully present with them, being a little bit more flexible with how we do that in the current circumstance.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So there has been some Facebook Lives, those of you who watch me, who have had my children turn up, and everyone loves them. And, but yeah. Awesome. So, Kathy, if people have been who've been watching this, like, oh, I'd like to know something further, I'd like to have more information about what you do or offerings that you have, how can they connect with you?
Sure, Suzanne. I had a thought. Can I do a little screen share for a second?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Let's see if I've got myself set up right for this. It should be Chrome. Yes. I just want to do a show you. This is my website blog page.
Awesome.
And the website is parentingbeyondwords.com.
Perfect. And I'll put that in the description from this video for everybody too.
And if you look under the blog page, there's a highlight of transitions, and there's 4 or 5 things about transitions, which this is a huge transition. So that topic you can highlight, okay?
Oh, brilliant.
And it'll give more strategies, but they're the ones that you start to implement after you have settled down a bit, and then you can take some steps and create some predictability and all this. Now, the other thing is, I have something called the standalone sessions. And so I'll just do the one that we've been talking about, but I do also specialize in parents and caregivers of transgender and gender nonconforming kids. That's more of another conversation.
Yep.
But on the website, there's 2 choices. And when you go to the one for parents at their wit's end, really, I have something called the standalone sessions. And that's a single coaching session that you can find out all about by paging through the page. Okay. I'm going to.
Oh, perfect. Yep. Lovely.
Speed through this. And then I want to end the screen share. Okay. Let's see if I can do it. Stop share. Okay. So that's one way to connect. And another way, which I'll send a link to Suzanne, it's the middle of the night there. If it's 9 a.m. here, is that the middle of the night?
I think so. So you're, so usually for things I do in the US, I do it quite early in the morning. So, between say 6 and 9 a.m. But yeah, because I think the US is a hard time zone for Australia.
Well, I'm doing something new, which is called Sheltering in Place with Kids. And it's a Zoom.
Cool.
It's a Zoom group. It's like you can drop in, or you can come at the beginning and stay as long as your kids let you stay. And it's a community. It's to create some community, some support, to share ideas and coping skills, and also get some parenting guidance from me.
Oh, that sounds brilliant.
And it's very affordable. It's a sliding scale, and it is even free if you need. So I can send that link, also post that link.
Perfect. Yeah, because I have a lot of people in the UK. I think the UK might be closer to you guys in time. So I've got a worldwide audience, so we'll see. But yeah, that sounds really good.
Yeah, and one of the sessions I'm going to do is like at this time.
Oh, that'd be perfect.
And so I'll do one morning for Eastern, but one at this time will hit your guys. And
perfect.
It'll be on a weeknight. I'm going to change the night, but it's just going to be a weeknight. So those are the 2 things besides the blog posts and free stuff on my website.
And do you have like a newsletter or anything like that?
I do. On my website, again, if you go to the services page, you'll see a free support, and there's a place to fill in to be on my mailing list, so you can get notices of blog posts and events or groups or inspirational quotes. So
I love it. I'm a bit of a stickler for my inspirational quotes. Well, thank you, Kathy. This has been really good and really informative and really helpful. So thank you for joining me today.
oh, you're so welcome. It's been a delight, honestly, Suzanne, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm gonna stop the recording.